Welcome to KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio and the Southern California Business Report with Yvette Walker, a show dedicated to highlighting successful Southern California businesses and the people behind them.
Welcome and thank you for joining the Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, KMET 1490 AM, 98.1 FM, and KMET TV. I'm Yvette Walker, live, blasting our signal from the center of Southern California, serving a population of over 25 million. Get us crystal clear and on demand by downloading the live stream KMET app on Google Play or the Apple App Store. A huge shout out to the team as always, Mitch, Bill, and Sean, I love you. And to our special advisory committee, Bill Morris of UCI School of Business, Jose and Camila Rubio, thank you so much. Also, don't forget to check out the Jay Kaplan Show, also on KMET on Fridays at 3. I have the extreme honor and pleasure to introduce Mr. Michael G. Rademaker. He is proud to base his businesses in the Inland Empire. Michael first entered the real estate market at 19 years old, fueled by an insatiable desire to learn and a commitment to provide a unique yet superior product for his clients. Michael is no stranger to the Inland Empire and now owns and operates one of the leading residential and commercial real estate sales, leasing, and management companies in Southern California. Over the decades, Michael has helped clients successfully grow their real estate investment portfolios while providing an unparalleled perspective of the Inland Empire real estate market. That success has powered MGR's remarkable growth across the region with offices in Ontario, Victorville, and Carlsbad. Michael and his team provide expert advice on a multitude of residential and commercial investments. These include multifamily apartments, office, retail, industrial, land, condominiums, hotels, and restaurants, as well as other business opportunities. Thank you so much for being with us today, Mr. Rademaker.
Thank you. I don't know what to say after an introduction like that. It makes me feel extra special. Thank you, Yvette.
Well, you know, you're no stranger to the Inland Empire. All you have to do is drive 1 or 2 blocks in any direction and you will find an MGR property sign in your MGR blue, you know, anywhere in Southern California. They're everywhere. You know, everywhere you turn, you're driving down the street, you see MGR properties, you see MGR property management. So I hope you will share with us a little bit about your background and your journey about how you became, you know, that well known and as successful as you are today in real estate development and property management.
You know, it's kind of it's a difficult story to kind of relate to, but when I just came out of high school, my aunt had over her house when I was about almost 19, and I respected her a lot. And so she told me that of all the nieces and nephews and family members, that I probably was the dumbest. And wow, that really hit me kind of hard. You know, here I am, 19 years old, trying to start my career, and she tells me that I'm not real smart. So I looked at her and I says, well, Mary, that really hurts. And she says, well, Mike, she says, but everybody likes you. She says, so what I'd like you to do is go into real estate. And if you take care of people, they will always take care of you. And she says, always remember that if you tell the truth, you don't have to be real smart, because the truth is always the same. And she says, if you take care of your clients carefully, they will take care of you. And if you don't lie to them, all of a sudden one day, everybody will start respecting you because you tell the truth. So that's what kind of got me onto the journey of real estate. And I thought that I would try it. And, you know, like everything else, you know, the first 10 years, everybody, you know, didn't know much about what I did. You know, I worked my typical 6-7 days a week, 10-12 hours a day, and made a living. And then all of a sudden, a lot of the advice that I'd received from others and clients started coming back. It made sense. And I had a lot of good opportunities. I started with a company called Mulhern Realtors, and Bruce Mulhern became a dear friend. And he told me the importance of owning real estate, and not only selling it, but owning it. And he suggested that I buy 1 property per year and keep it. Well, I've done that over the last, I'll admit, to at least over 46 years. So you can do the math. So I bought a lot of properties and I kept them. They slowly start becoming paid off and you have a rental income. So I don't know if you become super smart, but if you just stay consistent and honest with people, you can become successful. I had a great opportunity of making good friends in the Inland Empire, mostly because I've just been around here since 1975. So when you've worked and lived in the same town for, almost 50 years, it becomes easier and easier to get your signs up.
Right. And your headquarters is in Ontario, California. Please talk a little bit about your headquarters and the city that it resides in.
We initially started our operations in Upland, and we stayed there for about 30 years. And as we grew more and more into the Ontario airport, which I believe is the hub, of the Inland Empire, it's got the international airports. It's becoming one of the strongest business districts, in my opinion. It's got the Ontario Mills. It's got the arena. It's got everything. So we started buying buildings around the Ontario marketplace. And considering that we were buying so much real estate, we relocated our entire staff here, which consisted of a couple hundred people, to work out of our Ontario headquarters. And it's been one of the greatest things that we've ever done. And it's been easy access to everything. And it's kind of funny, when I moved from Upland to Ontario, it seems like in one day everybody thought I was a big company. I don't know. I don't know why. It's just I got a better reputation the day I moved into Ontario. So Ontario is a great city.
Absolutely. It really is. So let's jump into it because, the economy's been doing some very funny things lately, and it's been impacting everything, right? And of course, the business field with the pandemic that just passed, and companies with their staff that are working from home. Let's talk a little bit about the current landscape when we're looking at the commercial office space. What are your thoughts on the remote working landscape, and where do you see it moving forward?
Well, that's a difficult question, because if you ask an employee how they feel about the remote workplace, they're going to tell you that they think it's the best thing that's ever happened. And for a small fraction of them, it works good for them. But if you ask the average employer, he wants to bring his people back. A lot of times when people are home and they have other family involvements or issues going on, it's easily distracted. But at the office, it's not. I think the people need the energy, and I think the people need working next to each other and learning from each other in order to be productive. I think they've made a lot of mistakes, over the years, and companies, in the interest of saving money, seem to be putting more and more people in an office space. At one time you used to have like 4 per 1,000 feet, and then it started becoming 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people per 1,000 feet.
Wow.
The parking lots got crowded. Everybody was shoulder to shoulder. They were using library type table settings for maximum density. I think with the pandemic, we're going to see most of the companies going back to that traditional 4 or 5 per 1,000, good social distancing, and create an environment that the people want to come back to. I've been fortunate enough to see over millions of feet of office, companies redesigning, reconfiguring, and creating a much more work-friendly environment for their employees. And they are coming back to work. And the majority of them are pretty happy.
Right, absolutely. I mean, it's just, to me, there's a whole social element when you're working with a company, right? There's collaboration, obviously, communication, tasks, large scope projects. And everyone that I've spoken to is actually very happy to re-engage and to be social and to be out there, with their colleagues. So I'm really excited about what that looks like moving forward. Do you see more of like a hybrid situation maybe coming online to start? Flexible, part home, part office. What is it that you've been hearing from your tenants?
I think that it depends a great deal on whoever's running the office. If the person working from the office comes back and does 5 days a week, his staff's going to come back and do 5 days a week, because that's the expectation. If the boss wants to work remote 2 days a week, his whole staff does. So every company has its own culture. The smaller the company, the more the culture is to work remotely from home sometimes. The larger companies are calling their people back. They're trying to use remote to be convenient and cooperative during a transition period. But I think the end game is that it generally doesn't work for everybody as much. And in saying that, I have some employees that are working remote that have been more effective and efficient than they've ever been. And I never want them back in my office. They're doing so good.
Right.
but the majority of my staff, probably 95% of them, their production is up and the efficiency is up and the profitability is up. Companies were making a lot of mistakes working remotely as we adapted, and the world and the economy accepted it because there was a pandemic. Companies and people today are no longer accepting that. They're kind of saying it's been 2 years. Can I get this? Can I get that? If somebody was working from home and didn't get their paycheck, I bet they wish somebody went to work and finished it. If you went to the
Right.
grocery store and they were working from home, I guess you wish they were there. So the same thing is when people call their insurance agent or they call, their processing center, they need people to be there so that the paperwork can move along. And I think it's a tough combination. I can argue it both sides, but the majority of the people need to come back. I think it's time.
Right. And so with all of that said, you know, 2 years is a long time to have that dynamic going on, and especially as an owner of so much commercial real estate. During that time, did you look at maybe dynamics or opportunities to converting some of that office space to, mixed use formats? Is that something that was, explored during this time or something that's being looked at currently?
There's a lot of opportunity for people to take their office buildings and try to convert them to a mixed use format. You see it a lot in the inner cities, you see it a lot in, Pasadena, and it seems to work for them. It doesn't work for me specifically, and I don't think it works as much in the Inland Empire. They're existing buildings, they're not that old, they're in pretty good shape, and our occupancy is fairly high. If we start taking our existing office buildings and converting them to apartments, we're not going to have enough office buildings. We don't have a vacancy problem. We have a tremendous number of people. But that being said, when I say there isn't a need to convert, I do believe that the future is mixed use. I think that as you see more buildings coming out of the ground from this point forward, I would be surprised if they weren't mixed use. The cities are embracing it. All the cities are. I think the developers are seeing the importance of it. And because of the work from home environment and the fact that everybody likes that, there's something nice about if you had your office on the third floor and your house was on the seventh floor. That's about as close to work from home and keeping both people happy as possible. You can still go home for your break. You can still go up there and check on something if you have to at lunchtime, but you're still at work when you need to be. So I think that environment is not a maybe, but it's an absolute. It's going to be happening in the Inland Empire.
So when you talk about the tenant occupancy rate and how high it is, how does that look in relation to surrounding areas? Are all areas in California, experiencing a high tenant occupancy rate also, or is this unique to our region?
I think it's probably unique to certain submarkets. There are different areas that are affected by certain things. And back in the great crash of '08, the Inland Empire in Ontario was ground zero for disaster for everything. In 2020, it's been the heartland for success. Everything has been right. Everything is good. The companies and the employees that were maybe living in downtown LA or Santa Monica, Westwood, Orange County, and they were paying $3,000, $4,000 for rent, came out and bought a home in the Inland Empire and have a $2,500 house payment. So what's happening is now that when companies want to pull their workers back, their workers don't want the 90-minute commute. So the companies are actually downsizing operations in a lot of cases in in LA and Orange County, and they're expanding in the Ontario market. We see many of our tenants needing to expand. Or if they are reducing in size, the tenant next door takes it and expands. So we've not really lost much occupancy at all in the Ontario market, and we have not seen a reduction in rents. We have not seen any of these types of problems. We have seen reduced physical occupancy, but all the companies are sure that people are coming back.
Right. And so when we were discussing this earlier, you mentioned that some companies were compromising in the sense that rather than sending their employees off to LA, they were, reducing the commute by finding them office space closer to their home. And it also sounds like the pandemic was kind of an unintended windfall for the region when it comes to residential, housing and things of that nature. Do you see something similar along those lines?
It was an absolute windfall. When you were in LA and you're in a 10-story building and the pandemic has you scared to even sit in an elevator, and you come out to the Inland Empire and you can go in a 2-story building with a staircase, or you can just take an elevator up a few flights. My God, you're happy. When you're in an apartment complex and your kids and your dogs and nobody complain, you can come out here and get a yard for less than you're paying in rent. It was a perfect storm for the Inland Empire to benefit from this last tragedy around the areas, and it's continuing to. All the city managers and all the city councils and all the people in the Inland Empire that are running it, on the most part, have done a phenomenal job of preparing for this for the last 25 years.
Right. And it wasn't preparing for a pandemic or for an economic challenge, but it was preparing for growth that was basically inevitable. But these past 2 years just kind of propelled that and accelerated that, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I think it also it brought an awful lot of people back home. And I think sometimes there is a housing shortage, and there is, probably some pretty high rent issues out there. So I think that, it's brought a lot of people back to their house where maybe they were renting an apartment. They moved back in with their home, with their parents. They moved in with an uncle or an aunt, somebody who had a 3-bedroom house using one of the bedrooms. So that a lot of those houses were in the Inland Empire. They kind of started realizing that, the food tastes the same in the Inland Empire. Maybe sometimes it's a little hotter during the day, but it's a lot more comfortable at night. So I think the Inland Empire is really exploding from places to live, work, and play. So it's just a wonderful place to be right now. I couldn't be happier.
I agree. And what do you attribute that preparation, that positioning, that canvas that has been created? How did that happen, and why is it unique to our region?
I think there's always just a little bit of luck involved, and so I think that when you look at the geographics of it, you've got LA and Orange County, you got the San Gabriel Valley. Well, the next progression is us. We're sitting here at the forefront of where all the freeways are. And once they started building the 60 freeway, which dates me a little bit because I was around when they were building it. When they built the 60 freeway, it really helped South Chino markets and things. When the 10 freeway came in, it's been here forever. That was phenomenal. But when the 210 opened up, it really opened up this region, and that has really magnified, what you can and can't do. It's reduced the traffic times to LA. The new bullet train, if they get it in, going from Vegas to Rancho Cucamonga, which I think will happen. When all these things start coming together, it's just making it actually a nice place to live. If you were to have a choice between an 85-year-old house in South Central LA, no matter how nice it is going close to work, and you could buy a new 3 or 4 bedroom house, 8, 10 years old for half or a third the price, and move into an office building that's only 10 or 15 years old compared to 50, it seems to me like the math is shifting people here just by age and growth.
Right.
Some of the inner cities don't make people feel as safe as they did 10 years ago. And when you come out here, we've got just people that are prepared for that. I think that they've done so much in the Inland Empire that we don't see. And, greatness is sometimes the stuff that you don't see. You go into LA, and to me, I see a lot of homeless. I see a lot of good people on the side of the street for whatever the reason. And I come into the Inland Empire, I don't see very much of it. And I think it's because our city leaders have taken the necessary resources and commitments to make accommodations for people that have special needs, to give opportunities for job placement and retraining, to do things to make the place look better, where they sincerely care about people. And when you care about people, all of a sudden that starts becoming a family, and a family becomes a city, and the city starts becoming home to a lot of successful businesses. So I owe it to my politicians for just keeping things safe.
Absolutely. So, up until recently, your basically mode of operation would be to purchase existing buildings and, lease them out, rent them out, and things of that nature. But you started going into actually the mixed use development field as well. Um, are you working on mixed use projects today?
Yes, I think kind of what happened is, when I was looking at office buildings and I kind of liked them, it doesn't sound terrible. I bought most of them. So being that I have the majority of the office buildings that I ever liked, if I want more, I have no choice. I have to build them. And then I got a lot of friends. A lot of them have been on your talk show. Randall Lewis and Jeff Byrne, and just a barrage of successful people. Jimmy Pravity and all these guys. They're builders, and they're building and they're retaining. So I want to stay in my lane. I'm not going to compete with them. Nobody's doing mixed use. So I just decided that'll be my new lane. So we're prototyping and working right now on projects. We'll figure our startup projects will be 50,000 square foot in size. Three, 4 stories. Ground floor maybe office, retail. Second floor the same. Top 2 floors most likely a residential component or some hybrid of that, depending on what the needs of the city is. But we'll be looking at putting the buildings in clusters, 2 or 3 at a time, so that we create a campus-like environment. And probably the largest campus environment we're working on right now was about 800,000 feet. And
Wow.
we're trying to create a live work friendly environment so that we can put ourselves in a position to where the Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, and Fontana upland markets all benefit from the opportunities that are being given to them. The majority of my holdings are in Ontario. People laugh. I could go to San Diego to buy a building and I'll open escrow on something in Ontario the next day because I like the economics of Ontario. So we are preparing to build. We will probably be looking at coming out of the ground on several projects in 24, a lot of which are now, all of them are on the drawing boards, all of them are being planned and set up and organized. And we'll start construction within 18 months and delivering product in 3 years, which we think will be pushing us a little bit further past our current times in the economy. We're at some crossroads, but there's nothing that we can't handle if we do it smartly.
Right. And so, for reference, can you give us an idea of what those mixed use projects may look like? When you look at, let's say, downtown Pasadena, or let's say Irvine, what can we expect as you're, formatting these, designing these mixed use projects? And will they?
Something like I don't know for sure, but more like an LA Live concept. Something more where people feel happy and excited and safe. Where you'll see buildings maybe 8, 9 stories high, and you'll see them clustered around buildings 3, 4 stories high. We should see restaurants on the 8th and 9th floor, but we should also see, people may be living in a few floors below or on the tower next to it. You'll see a combination of 3, 4 story buildings all over town. You'll see, parking structures starting to be built as more norm than an abnorm. It's happening. I mean, there's a lot of stuff being drawn up and planned and worked on, a lot of which is probably either not talked about or covered under some SNDA where you can't talk about it yet, but there's lots of people collaborating together to make Ontario and the Rancho market a phenomenal place in the next few years. Fontana, though, is that sleeping giant that nobody sees. I have a vision that I believe Fontana will be that town that will compete equally with all of them. They have great leadership there. They have a foresight for it, and they have a very safe community. They have a lot of industrial, which that has been one of their forefronts. But the industrial people still need office component, and they have a lot of employees and very safe communities. So, I mean, this whole region, it's like a candy store if you want to develop. There's just so many good brands everywhere. You just don't know which candy bar to pick up. Everything is just a good time. It's fun.
Right. Well, it clearly demonstrates an appetite for these type of projects, right? Because obviously they wouldn't be developed if there wasn't an appetite for it. And there are, studies that are conducted and data that's collected that anticipates and projects what the needs are going to be. So we're coming up on a break. Thank you so much, Mr. Rademaker, for that insight. So for everyone listening, I'm Yvette Walker on Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, KMET 1490 AM, 98.1 FM, and KMET TV, talking to Michael G. Rademaker, founder and CEO of MGR Real Estate, MGR Property Management, and MGR Services, as we discuss the current landscape of commercial property, property management, and analysis of what we can expect to see moving forward when we return.
Every 2 seconds, someone needs a blood transfusion. Be on the giving side. Livestream Blood Bank supports patients in 80 Southern California hospitals. Call 1-800-TRY-GIVING for more information and to set an appointment.
City of Hope is driven to making a difference in the lives of people with cancer and diabetes. We accomplish this by conducting innovative research and providing outstanding care. If you or a loved one has received a cancer diagnosis, go to cityofhope.org to learn more about how our innovative approach could change your outcome.
Ontario International Airport is onto a better way to fly with over 65 daily nonstop flights to more than 20 major destinations and the easiest airport experience in Southern California. Visit flyonto.com/Ontario to learn more about Ontario International Airport today.
Hi, I'm San Bernardino County Sheriff Shannon Dykes. If you're looking to start an exciting career in law enforcement and make a difference in your community, we are hiring dispatchers, nurses, deputies, laterals, and many more. For a complete list of our jobs and more information, visit sheriffsjobs.com.
The University of La Verne is rated first in California for alumni satisfaction. Learn more about accelerated programs offered online and on campus in La Verne, Irvine, Ontario, Burbank, or College of the Canyons. Visit go.laverne.edu. The University of La Verne. go.laverne.edu.
Cal State San Bernardino is home to the only school of entrepreneurship in California. With globally ranked degree programs, you can start your journey today to become a successful entrepreneur. Learn more and connect at entre.csusb.edu.
It's summer, the sun is shining, and now's the time to make the most of your solar panels. Don't lose up to 50% of your solar panels' efficiency just because they're dirty. Get the most out of your solar panels and call my friends at Solar Panel Cleaning Specialists at 951-663-7502. That's 951-663-7502. Mention this ad and receive your discount. Offer expires December 31st. Welcome back. For those listening, I'm Yvette Walker on Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, KMET 1490 AM, 98.1 FM, and KMET TV, talking to Michael G. Rademaker, founder and CEO of MGR Real Estate, MGR Property Management, and MGR Services, as we discuss the current landscape of commercial property, property management, and analysis of what we can expect to see moving forward. Thank you again for being with us today, Mr. Rademaker.
Thank you. It's my honor.
Beautiful. So before the break, we were talking about, the history of MGR and the transition that you're making. Basically, you're transitioning from, purchasing already made commercial buildings to developing buildings, and not only any buildings, but mixed use buildings, with one of your first projects coming online and ready for people to move in 2024. Is that what we're saying? Or is that when we're breaking ground?
We'll be breaking ground probably in 2024 and be delivering product in mid to late 25. And then after that, we should be delivering projects on a fairly regular basis every year thereafter. I believe that there's a pent-up demand for it, but there's also some business economics that have to be accomplished in order for the development to be feasible. And that's something that's being worked on. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, inflation is what's making development possible. The increased cost is difficult, but a lot of the rents in the office market have been relatively low in comparison to other parts of the region. And when the rents in the office market were low and the cost of construction was high, it was impossible to build a new building because the economics didn't work. Over the last few years, partially with a little bit of my help, we've been nudging the rents up closer to what is a reasonable market. And we feel within the next few years, rents will be significant enough that we can either justify building or close enough that we can subsidize building until the market catches up with us. As a family and family-run business, we don't have an intention to buy and flip properties. We're not buying to sell properties. We're buying to hold for the long term. We're buying to commit to the town, to the people, and to our tenants that will be here for as long as possible, long past my death, and hopefully for as long as we can maintain consistency in the good towns.
Absolutely. And so, as it stands now, can you please talk a little bit about what your greatest challenges in pursuing property development? When you look across the board, what is that, and what can we expect to see from MGR property management, and services in the next 10 to 20 years?
I think it's always politically correct, and everybody always wants to kind of blame the cities or blame the government or blame bureaucracy for the delays. And, quite frankly, they play a pretty good part in that because they too have just working staff and people and a lot of demand and not a lot of training. But I think a lot of it is me, and it is the developer. It's my hurdle is creating and developing that same crack team that I have for purchasing office buildings and apartments, renovating them and bringing them to maximum capacity with great speed. So we've taken us a little bit of time, but we've put a good team together. So now we do know how to wiggle through the crazy lines that you have in order to get the projects done. We've learned not to over promise and under deliver. We've learned to be realistic about what can and can't be done. And instead of fighting with bureaucracy, we're trying to figure out how to streamline it politely instead of getting mad at them. We have found that, fortunately, I've been in town 50 years. So to a certain extent, a lot of the people I probably went to school with them. So if they stayed local, it makes it a little easier to call somebody and not ask for a favor, but ask for guidance. So my greatest challenge has been to ask for guidance and ask people to show me and help me how to do it. I've talked to a lot of developers and friends who've taught me a lot. And one thing that I think they taught me the most is sometimes before you get too convinced on what you think you want to build, you have to really look at the land. You got to look at what's around it. You got to look at the city. You can't put certain types of uses against certain types of uses. So you just got to know what fits, what the master plan is. Talk to the city. It's so much easier to try to blend with their dream instead of making them blend to your dream. And all of our cities have done new master plans recently. Mixed use is a big part of their dream and their goal. They've gone and drank the same Kool-Aid that I drank, and we're all ready to do this stuff. And it's going to drop traffic. It's going to drop pollution. It's going to get everybody. It's going to make everybody a happier place. So we're excited. It's been about getting the right team and getting the right understanding and respect.
Right. Well, it's about that collaborative mindset, right? Always looking to move forward with solutions, right? Finding opportunities for a successful outcome. And when you pursue these big tasks with a team mentality, things end up turning out a little bit better, wouldn't you say?
Oh, it's much quicker. Oh God, I've had some of my best projects get finished because I bought into the dream of the people that make the decisions. If the city wants a 4-story and I want a 3-story, then well, it could be far cheaper to build the 4-story, even though construction's higher, than it is to go through the process of fighting it. And a lot of times it's not them. They have regulations or rules or requirements or that they need to follow in order to meet, their master plan. So a lot of times it's a matter of us just taking the upfront time to understand each other. I've got some really good consultants who don't have any problem asking me just to trust them, and their reputations give me that ability to trust them. And because of that, we'll be moving forward on significant projects as a result, not of me in its entirety, but probably a great deal to do with my team and their belief in what I'm doing, and of course our ability to work with our banks and our banks' willingness to finance these projects in the Inland Empire for us.
That's right. And, the fact that there is this appetite and these ongoing efforts to develop speaks to the economy as a whole in the Inland Empire. Can you please talk about your view on the economy in our region?
I think it's great. I don't understand how people talk about how things can be difficult or tough. There's everywhere you go, everybody's hiring. Everywhere you go, everybody's giving their employees raises. Everywhere you go, everybody's doing a little bit better. The problem is that everybody got used to living pretty good. During the pandemic, I think to me, one of the worst things that ever happened was also the best thing that ever happened. The government was so careful to make sure that nobody suffered because they didn't know what coronavirus was, that they gave so much to everybody. They gave businesses PPP loans without initial guidelines on goal one. They gave a lot of money to employees, but made more money not going to work than they did if they ever went to work. People didn't have to pay their rent, their utilities. People had all these special programs set up. And well, now that they're going back to their old jobs, they're making less money going to work than they did staying at home. This is what we're seeing all over probably America. What's interesting about the Inland Empire to me is that the Inland Empire is a bunch of pretty good old people and a pretty good blue collar community and white collar. They worked through the pandemic, the majority of them. So we're not getting the pushback that they're getting in Orange County and in LA and other areas. Everybody I met in the Inland Empire kind of tried to work through the times. Everybody was happy. Rents are going up crazy. But besides that, the fundamentals are there. People are paying it. The economy, if they couldn't pay the rent, they wouldn't pay the rent. But we're doing really well. They're building everywhere. The city of Ontario is doing massive amounts of improvements and planned improvements. The freeways, the highways are under construction. The Lewis family's building retail everywhere you go. Previty's building apartments. Burm is doing this. Everybody's doing something. And everybody's excited.
Right.
And nobody's showing signs of fear. We have respect of the economy. And of course, the rise in interest rates put a dampener on some of the stupidness. But good business is never a problem. It's never a problem. You just work your way around it. Don't be an oak tree. Don't collapse in the wind. Just be a palm tree. Just kind of bend and move and shake and go with the times, and you'll be fine. And the Inland Empire is full of a bunch of people that can bend with the times. I've never seen so many flexible people. They work hard, they play hard, and they're honorable.
That's absolutely right. So with that said, do you view, the prospect of a recession just kind of passing over our region, or what is your view of that possibility for our overall economy?
I think a recession is really modest and doesn't affect too many people as long as you're not unemployed. But I think if you're one of the unemployed people, it seems like the recession is a little bit tougher. There's lots of jobs out there. And I believe that if they go to work thinking they're going to get fired, they probably will. If they're involved in a relationship and say it's not going to work, it probably won't. And if people think that the recession is going to hurt them, it probably will. I think when you realize that there are some corrections coming, just plan for them. Don't waste. Be cautious. Stay home once in a while. Make a hamburger at the house. Spend some time with your family and friends. Go for a walk. Just live within your means, and there won't be a recession. It'll be a slight lifestyle adjustment. And I urge everybody to think of making the adjustments that they can afford. And that includes companies. Companies have to also realize, make the adjustment. Maybe you reduce one job position but you save the rest of your team. The other 50 people are all happy, they got their jobs, and life is good. Companies will be making tough choices, families will make tough choices, but it needed to happen because spending and inflation is destroying a lot of what we're doing. Tenants are sitting there getting 10% annual rent increases year after year after year. That's unsustainable. It's
Right.
just unsustainable.
Absolutely. So, please talk about your experience in past economic cycles that are similar to what we're seeing today. But please, can you share with us what similarities or differences you have observed this time around?
I survived lots of crashes, all of them. Not 29. I wasn't there then, but '08. I was back in '93 and some of the other ones. But in '08, it was really difficult because our lending environment was out of adjustable rate mortgages. So people bought loans with a 1.92% interest rate as a teaser rate, and they went to 5 or 6% in 3 years. Well, their house payments went up significantly, so people just couldn't do it. And if they could do it, they didn't want to do it because the house prices dropped so much. Well, this time it's a little bit different. The banks made sure that if you bought a home, for example, that you qualified for it. And the interest rates, for the most part, were fixed. So if you bought a home 6 months, a year, or anything prior to that, you're sitting there with probably a 3% or less interest rate thereabouts. You got a 30-year mortgage, it's fixed. It doesn't matter. Go to work, pay your rent, life's a good place.
Right.
You don't want to not make your house payment. Don't not make your house payment. Because what's going to happen is when you go back and buy, your interest rate's not going to be 3 or 3.5. It's going to be 5.5.
Mm.
And the house that you thought wasn't good enough at 800,000 is now you're going to be looking for one at 600,000 to afford it. So be happy with what you have. Make your house payments. Go to work. Do your job. Then the recession won't affect you. It'll just be something you talk about with your kids about how it was modest and mild. I've seen people that go to work and do their job and they're not affected. In the last recession, I wasn't as affected as much as others. I bought buildings almost every 3, 4, 5, 6 months, month after month during that last recession. And I bought them really cheap, mostly because people gave up. The fundamentals aren't that bad.
Right.
They're great fundamentals. So if the people just be cautious, don't waste, but still enjoy your lives, you'll get right through it. And you'll probably go to work, be one of the few happy people, and end up with a raise.
Absolutely. And so you are the beacon of what a successful career looks like, right? You have decades of experience, a lot of notoriety. Like I said, everywhere you drive in Southern California, you see an MGR Properties, MGR Property Management, something that says MGR on it. What is the most common question that you're asked?
I think people ask me how I did it. How did you come from living in Montclair and modest family? I didn't come from money. My family didn't have money. But my family taught me good values. They taught me work ethic. They taught me to be on time. They said, if you're going to do it, just do it. It's that simple. Your word has to be more important than anything you write down. Do not lie. I think that was drilled so much into my head by my father, who, was a Marine. All of his friends had always said, do things a certain way. That's probably what made me successful. I went to work and didn't know any better. I didn't know that, that it wasn't impossible to accomplish what I did. I believed that if I worked really hard and I bought and I held and I bought and I held, that I would be successful, because that's what the math says. I just didn't stop when I started becoming a little successful. People many times, Yvette, they get a little bit of money and they stop doing what they used to do to be successful, because now they're afraid they're going to lose it. Mm. Well, I just never got afraid. So I continued to do everything the same way that I did when I was starting out. And it continues to mushroom and do better and makes you very, very successful. So dream, live your dreams, and don't be afraid of your dreams. You've got to sometimes just say, I can do it. Now, I guess the biggest problem that I have is sometimes I wake up and people think I can do things that I don't even think I can do. They're just like, oh, well, Mike, this is only $700 million. You can afford that. I'm going, huh? I mean, everybody wants me to buy these big projects all over the country, and I can't do that. I mean, my banks love me, but I don't think they love me that much. But I like to stay in my lane. When I say stay in my lane, I love the Inland Empire. I like dabbling around a little bit in Orange County and San Diego, and I want to do the product markets that I'm good at. Which is, we do very well in the office market. We also, and we're so quietly involved heavily in apartments and single family homes. We have probably 1,000, 1,500 houses that we rent, and condominium associations and management companies. We're extremely diverse as a company. I got really beat up in 1993 when I was all focused in one product type. So now we're very well diverse in single family homes, and diverse in apartments and industrial and retail and office. Everything you could possibly imagine touching the real estate industry is what we're involved in. And we're good at it because we have different teams that work in certain different departments. My people that do apartments wouldn't have a clue what to do in commercial, nor do they want to, and vice versa. So we're here
Right.
to serve, and we're really having a lot of fun here. I don't think I have anybody here that's not having fun.
That sounds wonderful. So, do you have any advice for anyone looking to enter the real estate or property management field? And is it a growing field?
Well, I think it's like healthcare. If you think of property management or real estate and you think about people, and if you really care about people, and if you really want to take care of them, just like a doctor or a nurse, if you do that and you want to do real estate, you're going to do phenomenal because your client's going to see when they're looking at you that you honestly care, that you honestly like it, and you honestly enjoy it. And that comes across in their personality, and it comes across in their service. And that's what allows them to be a phenomenal real estate agent or property manager or even an admin in it. They have to like it. We're basically a form of care.
So,
And
yeah, that's it. It's basics, right? It all comes down to loving what you do. And that's
yeah,
something I tell my kids all the time, focus on what you love to do and you will never work a day in your life. You're
mhm,
committed, you're dedicated, you're disciplined, and you love what you do. And it sounds like everyone at MGR loves what they do. So with that said, can you please talk a little bit about, career pathways that people would be surprised to learn exist within the property management field?
I think that, everybody sometimes feels that, that property management is a thankless job. But, so is being a doctor or a nurse sometimes. Property managers, what they do is people don't call me to ever say that my rent's too low. And they never call to tell me that, it's hot outside and my air conditioner works. They only call me to tell me that the rent's gotten too high and my air doesn't work good. I'm uncomfortable. If I'm okay with saying, let me help you, then that's a good job in property management. Can you support yourself as a property manager? Yes. I have a lot of single parents with kids that are property managers and live a good life. They buy homes, they're living a normal life, they're not commuting back and forth, they give to be with their kids, and it's very flexible. You have different types of management. You have the people that work, in the office, we call that offsite management. There's an awful lot of on-site management. On-site management also blends itself to more of a hybrid work environment that more people are now thinking about than in the past. As an apartment manager, you work on site and you live on site. It's that simple. So when it's your half-hour lunch, you could be home in 2 minutes. You walk across the courtyard. So I think
Wow.
that a lot of people that maybe like that environment of a little bit working from home are a little bit closer. If work starts at 8 o'clock, they leave their apartment at 7:58. They're
Right.
not worried about traffic for an hour and a half. That's one of the advantages. They sometimes get subsidies on their rent. They get pretty good pay as an on-site manager, surprisingly good pay, and even maintenance and property management. I know I got maintenance guys making more money than some of my college graduates.
Wow.
They're, because when you got a building engineer, they're making phenomenal money. I mean, they're making much more money than like a lot of the degreed positions. So property management, folks, doesn't require a lot of times specialized degrees. Sometimes it does, but it does pay equally as well as any job that you would get if you're good at it, you care about it, and you take care of your tenants. That's my feeling. It's a great job.
Wonderful. So as we come towards the end of the program here, let's just briefly, can you please talk about what your plans are as you look out into the next 5, 10, 15 years of your career in real estate? What does that look like, and what are you most excited about?
I probably want to be remembered for a lot of things. And one of the things I want to be remembered for is something that Randall Lewis said to me. He asked me, Mike, he says, what's going to be your legacy? And I told him, well, my signs and my buildings. He says, no, Mike, what's going to be your legacy? And I thought a lot about that for several years. I want to make sure over the next 5, 10, 15 years of our company, we continue to prosper in the real estate market so that a portion of our profits can go to helping others. We really want to create a foundation into caring things where we work with probably people that work with people that need help. My son's nonverbal autistic, and I owe all of his successes to caregivers. And sometimes the caregivers aren't given the respect and dignity that I think they all deserve. They're not getting the pay, they're not getting the rewards. So I make sure I pay my staff really good at home because they're taking care of the most important loved ones. So one of my legacies wants to be is I want to be able to do a foundation and an awareness for the aides and the caregivers that help our children and help our senior citizens so that we can go about our lives and be happy. So that's going to be one of my legacies. I'm going to work with the University of Laverne and some other campuses. And MGR is going to do that while they're building a massive numbers of buildings, while they're building millions of feet of office. But we want to take some of that as a mission to help the community so that it'll be around for decades to come.
Oh my goodness, that is absolutely inspiring. Thank you so much for being with us today, Mr. Rademaker. Congratulations on your continued success. And again, thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
All righty. For everybody listening today, don't forget to look for us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Check us out on scbrtalk.com. And don't forget to download the free live streaming app on Google Play or the Apple App Store. Don't miss my interview with Dr. Eileen Dinkjian, serving as the Executive Director of Population Health at the San Antonio Regional Hospital Randall Lewis Healthy Communities Institute. Eileen leads the development of population health management initiatives and provides leadership and oversight for the HCI and community outreach programs. Next week, we will have Dr. Devorah Lieberman, the 18th president of the University of Laverne, a nationally ranked and Carnegie-designated private institution for community engagement. The University of Laverne is located in Southern California, founded in 1891, and serves 8,000 students. So everybody listening today, we will see you next week, Tuesday at 4. Thank you again. Don't miss it.